Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stew with JT Brew here on Total Apex Sports and the Stew with JT Brew YouTube channel. Tonight we're going to talk playoffs, end of the season, who's going where, who's playing who, and we're going to run through some of our fantasy awards, MVPs, some surprises, some disappointments. So stick with us here. You're in the stew. Thanks, Toast, to my co-host with me tonight, and we got our guest Aaron Tometich back on the show tonight. I will say, as we start things off here, Aaron, congrats to your buddy, the Washington Capitals. Get it done. My Detroit Red Wings made it as interesting as you possibly make it, and still missed the playoffs on a tiebreaker. Unbelievable, but man, I tell you what, guys, it's been a fun hockey season, but even the last couple weeks have been great. A ton of teams were still in the mix. We still have a couple seeding things to decide here in the league as we get moving forward. And we got a couple games going right now, and then tomorrow night, last night of the regular season. It's been a heck of a year, though, right, guys?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, without a doubt, crazy year, crazy way to end it. Like you said, the yeah, I think Tortorella made a whole entire state of enemies with the whole pull the goalie when he didn't really need to. Kind of screwed you guys over. So I I would not want to hope he doesn't have a vacation cabin up in the maybe the UP up there in Michigan because I would stay away this year. But yeah, yeah. I mean, what a great year. What if the games are meaningful in the last week. Like you said, JT, we got some of the Western Conference games going on right now that we're watching. Some of those seedings are still lining up. We'll still get possibly movement tomorrow, so we're not sure. The East is settled. The East we're concrete there, but West are moving around. You got two guys that got 100 assists this year. The fourth and fifth player respectively.
Mhm.
We got another guy that almost cracked 70. I was really the Leafs played that game ended earlier tonight. Didn't just short of that. But yeah, I mean, what a season. Line brawls are back. The Devils and Rangers. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. So, but yeah, again, going back to your Detroit and Caps, the Capitals are with the minus 37 goal differential. I've never seen anything like it's like the Phoenix Coyotes have a better goal differential. The Ottawa Senators, everybody craps on them this year. They have a better goal differential. What are the Capitals doing?
It's
All
unbelievable, right? My buddy
it
Jorge
is.
chiming in here. He's like, Caps, 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 Caps. Big
Yeah.
Washington fan. He's pumped that they're in. I mean, it's just a crazy story. I know we trashed the Caps earlier in the year. They just looked terrible. Ovi Ovechkin just didn't look like the same guy. He had a bunch of games where he just wasn't even shooting the puck, and we're like, what is happening in Washington? And then somehow, some way, this team makes the playoffs. It totally reminds me of that fantasy team in your league that you like look at. And you're like, how are you like the lowest scoring team in the league,
Yeah.
and yet you like gave up the second least amount of points, and you like made the playoffs, and you're like, how did that happen? And I think that's where the cast, but man, I tell you what, when it counted, they came through big down the stretch, and they got two big wins against the Red Wings
Mm.
at the end of the year that were the difference maker. And I said it a couple weeks on the show. I tell you guys, I'm right now. It's gonna come down to that game, even though it's not the last game of the year. Whoever wins that game is gonna have is probably the team that's gonna end up winning it. Washington went in, won a 2-1 just battle against the Red Wings, and it was the difference maker. It was unbelievable. But man, congrats to Washington Capitals and all the people out there, Caps fans. Because man, what a run to make it. And I tell you what, Ovechkin, for everything he didn't do earlier in the year, man, did he just turn it on down the stretch for them.
He he had a ton of points down the stretch. When points, goals, JT. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I want to say he scored a goal in like maybe 23 of his last 30 games, something like that. It was an insane stat. And really, you know, Dylan Strome came on, and I'd say the last month of the season, and really, really picked it up. And we've seen Strome do that with Chicago, with all of us actually being Hawks fans and stuff. Good player, good player. He's never going to be a player that's going to drive play by himself. But definitely, he can ride a coattails as a superstar pretty good. Patrick Kane will tell you that, and this Strome puts up some decent stats as well. And then, they're getting a healthy TJ Oshie here near the end of the season. Oshie had a couple big, big goals here in the last week to really, propel them and move forward. Um, we like to talk about momentum and thinking Washington actually has all the momentum, but the X's and O's on paper, it don't look good for the Capitals. But the playoffs, you guys know how that is. Anything can actually happen. You get the hot goaltender, you get some inspired play, and really they've been in playoff mode now for a month. And the Rangers haven't. The Rangers, who they're going to face, they've been the President's Trophy winners, and they've really been coasting here, and they still have actually had a very, very good season, no doubt about it. I mean, best record in the NHL, but you do wonder how momentum will play into that. But you still got to think, and we'll get into matchups here. But you still got to think the Rangers actually take that. But Washington, what a great story, JT. I do want to talk about your Red Wings a little bit. I hate to kind of bring it up and to really kind of throw a salt in the wound, but we got to talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a crazy end of the season. We had talked about all year. They're maybe a year ahead of where we thought they would be. We thought they maybe would be another year before they made the playoffs. They kind of came out on fire, and we're like, this Red Wings
They
team
came out
is
on
going to
fire.
be
Yeah,
better than we think. And they really did had a solid season all along. They had a couple big games down the stretch that they lost. I mean, they won three in a row. The two 5-4 wins against Montreal and the 5-4 win against the Leafs on their last three games were wild. After losing a 5-6 game to Pittsburgh and a 2-1 game to Washington. So those were the big ones that buried them. But I think you're going to go back and look at this season and really say the difference was the Dylan Larkin injury. When Larkin went
yeah,
out, they just fell apart for that week and a half. I got to go back and look at what exactly it was, but it was something like 8 straight losses or 10 straight losses. And they were like, I mean, they were just firmly in the playoff hunt. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I'm getting a little worried as I'm looking at it. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight. They won one, then they lost again. So I mean, they went 1-9 in a stretch, 1-2 more, and then they turned around and lost 4 straight again. So they just had a really tough March. Only 3 wins in all of March. You just can't do that down the
yeah.
stretch. And that's really what buried them. They got themselves in a hole. They won some big ones in the last week and a half of the season to kind of get themselves still in the mix. But they had a tough schedule. I mean, they had a big win at Tampa, lost to the Rangers by 1, beat Buffalo. And again, we talked about the Capitals game at home. Thought that was going to be the difference maker with 5 games left in the season. It ended up being the difference maker, the 2-1 loss. Again, Pittsburgh nipping at their heels. They were right in the mix as they got caught fire down the stretch, lost 6-5 there. And then the huge win. But I mean, we got to talk about that ending. So they're down 2 straight nights to the Caps. And you're like, I'm watching these games and I'm going, of course they're going to miss the playoffs because they lose the schedule couldn't have worked out better when they get the Caps the last or the sorry, not the Caps, they get the Canadians.
Canadians, yeah.
Excuse me, sorry about that. I misspoke. The Canadians, the last 2 games of the year, I'm like, okay, they're pretty much done. Like they've been one of the worst teams all year. This is gonna be a prime spot for the Red Wings. They get down, you're like, it's over. I'm like, they're gonna lose this game. They're out of it. They come back, they win 5-4 in dramatic fashion. You're like, okay, one more game. One more game. They're in the mix. They just did it. They get down again. You're like, it's over. There's no freaking way. They come all the way back and they tie it with 3.3 seconds left in regulation to send it to OT. They end up going to a shootout, and Patrick Kane wins it in the shootout. And you're like, this is the greatest story ever. And then you turn around and you're like, what? What did the Flyers do? Oh, they pulled the goalie in a 1-1 game and gave him an open goal net the cost of the playoffs.
Early.
It was
Yeah.
it was like it was one of the craziest things because they happened within minutes of each other. So it was one of the craziest finishes. And again, both these teams were probably going to lose in the first round anyway. But get into the playoffs, for Red Wings fans ending that 8-year drought, you know, for Ovechkin to get in, some of those guys. I mean, it matters just making the playoffs. And again, we've seen it in the past. Getting in, you never know what's going to happen in the NHL. You just never know. So, I mean, just 2 unbelievable endings. It was just wild, the highest of the highs, the lowest of the lows within just a few minutes of each other. But as 2 guys, other than Aaron, I know you have a buddy that works for the Caps. You guys look outside of start. I'll start with you, Toast, and then go to Aaron. Kind of, what were you thinking as you were seeing some of these things kind of like happen at the end here, and just being like, this is some freaking crazy hockey.
Yeah, I texted you last night, and I knew you probably were doing some other pods and stuff. 3 seconds ago, you get a goal. And I believe it was it? It was either Sprong or Perron. I forget who it actually was, but 3 seconds, they pulled the goalie. Detroit ends up getting a goal. And is there a worse, I guess, kick in the tit or just kick right in the nuts, either way, of winning those games like that down the stretch if you're Detroit in dramatic fashion, and then to turn around and actually know that, well, you lost due to a point, or I guess not really even a point, it's a tiebreaker.
They lost the tiebreak.
It's worse. It's worse. And JT, you hit it on the head. That stretch in March when they were without their captain, there's a lot of games they wish they had back, because when I saw Detroit in this last 4 or 5 games, I saw a playoff team again. And I called them a playoff team all year. All year. Every single time we had a pod, right? Remember that? This is the playoff team. This is the playoff team. They play with that urgency the last 4 or 5 games. And I mean, dramatic urgency. And they win games. I mean, you're without your captain. I get it, for all of March. You have to play with that urgency to some degree. And that just kind of goes to show you they're in the right direction. They're going in the right direction. It's probably just a little bit early for them to go ahead and compete. Now, if they would have made it over Washington, they'd be playing the Rangers. I don't know. The Rangers, obviously, like I said, awesome team, President's Trophy. I think they're beatable. I think they're beatable. It wouldn't shock me at all if they got beat in the first round. It wouldn't. It wouldn't at all. And Detroit, with that type of momentum, if they could have actually made it in, it would have been a really, really interesting first round matchup. So I hate it. I hate it. I'm not even a Red Wings fan, but I hate it to lose that way. You'd rather just lose by a point in standings and just know, you know what, like, we just didn't get it done. But the fact they laid it all out on the line those last 4 or 5 games, and to still actually lose it by the tiebreaker, it's just a tough way to actually go out. So, but here's the question, and Aaron, I'll let you actually comment on this, but maybe you can actually comment on what I'm about ready to ask. Kane did come out and say that, yeah, absolutely, he wants to be back. So if he does, I would imagine he's going to get a couple years. He's going to get at least a 2 or 3 year deal, and probably around the average of $5 to $6 million, especially with the cap increasing. Which everybody's like, well, he's old. Okay, he was a point per game player. I think he ended up playing 50 games, and he had 49 points, something like that, point per game. That's his classic Kane. Hey, don't don't discount him actually going back to the Hawks. I know they want to make that Bedard's team. They actually wanted him to be the captain, and maybe Nick Foligno, the captain de facto, and actually have a Bedard actually be in the wings, kind of waiting. Don't discount that. It's possible. They end up getting Celebrini, and then coming back and having Bedard as well, and having a healthy Taylor Hall. It all of a sudden makes sense. We got all kinds of cap room. You never know. You never know, right? So, but part of me actually doesn't want that to happen, and actually like to see him back in a Wings jersey, because I just think that him and Larkin and DeBrincat, and man, we'll definitely have to talk about Lucas Raymond coming up here, because Raymond,
Yeah, we'll talk about him in a minute. I mean,
he is on his path.
Man.
I wouldn't say superstar status yet, but he's going that way, man. I mean, what he's done over the past week has been
good down the stretch.
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, no, like biggest goals on the team and biggest plays on the team down the stretch. So the future's bright for the Wings, man. It really, really is. The goalies, they may have actually, I wouldn't say they actually overachieved. Lyon may have actually overachieved, but even given what he did for Florida last year, did he really overachieve? Like, he was great in the first half. And then Reimer was awesome in these last couple of games, even though he actually gave up 4 goals. Lots of big point saves. I mean, it was good. That was fun to watch. That was a lot of fun to watch. So, Aaron, I'll pass it to you and let you have a couple of thoughts about that. But
yeah,
sorry,
I was
kind
going to
of
throw in
dominated there for a minute.
Yeah, I was going to throw before we throw it to Aaron on there. I was going to say, if you go back and look at the stats, 47 points for Kane this year, 20 goals, 27 assists in 50 games, his highest goal output since 2019.
Yeah.
Coming off surgery and only playing 50 games, 20 is 47 points, obviously not one of his highest overall point totals, but goal totals, one of his top. So it was impressive. I'd love to see him back on the Wings. Like you said, Toast, he could go to the Blackhawks. Well, Aaron, tell us kind of what you think about Canada, but also give me your thoughts as someone who's kind of pushing for the Caps. Like, just your thoughts about this team coming down the stretch and them getting some just monster wins in these last couple weeks of the season.
Yeah. I mean, well, first with Kane, I think he stays put. He seemed to play well with Comfer, JT Comfer, arguably probably the best, one of the best free agent pickups, I would say, that really made a difference. Now, where was he when Larkin went down? Yeah, you can probably question that. I yeah, I don't know. Again, I think you've already, you both have kind of really hit that, because I going back and I looked at that, where did the wheels fall off? Because they seem to be a team that never lost too many in a row, or never really, we're always there, always in the standings. And again, we would, we'd come on the pod, or we would talk outside of the pod, talk about the eyes are playing, all that kind of thing. Oh man, a year ahead, but they never really were out of it, with the exception of that March. And Larkin goes down, and out they go. So did not see that coming. Didn't think they were that thin. But hey, hey, here we are. As far as Kane, I think he stays put. I think he had felt welcome there. The reception he got on the well, I don't need to tell you this. You were there, Toast. But the reception he got on the Chelios
awesome.
night, it was like, hey, you had a home here, but kind of closing the chapter on that. You did your 3 loops. You did your little goodbye. I really do think that's it. Whether it's a PR thing or not, I think that it's kind of like that era is you had the kind of the 3 guys, the 3 big names with Keith, Taves, and Kane, and now it's Bedard, Celebrini, and I don't know, Kurchav, whatever, or maybe somebody we don't know about yet. But yeah, then to your point too, the last kind of point on Detroit, or kind of close the loop on that, is I agree with you on goaltending. I think Husso had he was injured obviously, but Lyon came in, and I think really, again, he did what he did in Florida, and it I like their forward depth. Their defense is maybe a year or two away from being
Mhm.
the real stop. The shutdown line, or the shutdown D, the typically your second line, third line to D, and then but you got something really special inside her. I mean, the guys, he'll be elite level talent. So you have that kind of linchpin in your defense and your back line. You got a power play quarterback in him. You got a lot in that guy, and then you can kind of fill in from there. So nothing but brightness. The future's bright, and the eyes are playing. And that's the other thing too. You guys didn't sell out at the
Mhm.
deadline. This again, I use the term often, probably overuse it. You're playing with house money. Kind of, we're playing with house money a little bit. If you made, it
Yeah.
sucks you
Yeah.
didn't make it. It would have been nice to see it, but but to the point, you guys have talked about it too. Chip in a chair, you get into the playoffs. I would say the two screaming examples of that were the St. Louis Blues when they won the stupid cup, and I hate them, but they did it, and I respect it. I'll give them respect. And then the Panthers last year.
I ain't giving no
They,
respect.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Screw
I
them.
ain't doing. I
But
ain't
yeah,
doing it.
but the Panthers last year, they made it in on day 82. They came in and they rolled everybody.
Yep.
They beat the all-time number one best regular season team in Boston, and Boston looked dumb. So
Yeah.
anything's possible. So Caps, Rangers. Again, I know we're not at the prediction part yet, but anything's possible, man. You got Spencer Carberry. I give him more credit than I've ever talked about a coach. I just think he's got him dialed in, and Caps are wanting to win. They're not just. It's not just the OV break the goal. That's what we're here
Mhm.
for. Let's just let's show up on the score sheet when he gets the record. I want to be the A1 assist. They're playing. They're playing. You got the Lindgren. You got him. You've
Yes.
got a good squad. You got a good squad there, and they proved it. They proved everybody wrong. Not anybody had them making the playoffs. It was just the
No.
OV watch, and here we are. So yeah,
Yeah, nice run by them. Let's jump to let's talk a little bit about the West. A few more things up in the air here. We got some games going now. We got some games tomorrow. The West, man, it seems jumbled to me. I could make so many different these teams that I could say like, oh, this is why I think they're gonna win. This is why I think this team's gonna win. But let's start off with the big, I think is the shocker of the West this year, and that's the Los Angeles Kings. I did not see them coming this year. I know they've got some talent. They've had some guys coming up through the minors the last couple of years. We were kind of waiting to see how when those guys would make the big club and kind of show out a little bit. But man, the goaltending was way better than we thought it was going to be. They've been in on the mix. They've been in the top three in the Pacific all year. Vegas has made a super late run, and so they're still kind of fighting there. They're a point behind them now, but they've clinched the playoff spot. But now we're waiting on seeding. Kind of, I'll start with you, Toast. What about kind of the year the Kings put together?
Like you said, JT, maybe a year early, but man, lots of um, they had some health issues earlier. Arvidsson being hurt for majority of the season, coming back, that gives them a pretty big boost. They've been carried by, Kopitar, who's man, he's always there. I mean, geez,
yeah,
how old is that guy? Is he 50 years old yet? He's
he's
still
got to
actually
be.
playing.
Yeah,
And Quentin Byfield coming into his own. Byfield actually coming into his own. Really, again, you got that mix of veteran presence with youth. You got to think that they're still a little early. I think that whether they play Dallas or whether they play Edmonton, I don't see them actually winning that first round playoff. Um, they've um, they've had Copley in goal, I believe. The goaltending isn't nearly as good is Dallas. So I'm not huge on the Kings this year in the playoffs, but I'm really, really big on the Kings long term. And they know how to get it done. I mean, they won their cups in the 2010s. Them and the Hawks were kind of trading back and forth, right, so to speak. And they still know how to get it done as an organization. They're they've done what they should have actually. They've done more than actually what they should have actually done this year, right? And so they're moving in the right direction. The Kings this year, or what I would actually hope that the Blackhawks are, maybe even not next year, but the year after, right? But I think that maybe sped up a little bit with the Hawks, but nevertheless, like that's the type of team they are. They had the number one farm system, I believe, last year, and maybe even the last 2 years, and they're really starting to come in their own. So, Aaron, what do you think about the Kings?
Yeah, hot start, and they stayed with it. Again, I would draw a lot of similarities between the Wings and the Kings. It's just the difference of the East versus West Coast, where West Coast had a little Vegas. So although they did make the playoffs, had a little bit of a late start. They had that super. Yeah, obviously they won the cup, so you don't have much of an off season. So the West was kind of out there. You had the Sharks that just were horrible, historically horrible.
Yeah.
So you knew that, and the Ducks. So you got two of the teams that are in your division. You're just gonna just dummy them when you play them. So they had some things in their favor. But I'll say this about the Kings: they got the stud, Brant Clark. Yeah, Brant
Yes.
Clark still in the system. He's going to come in. I think if they're missing something, they're a little thin on defense. I like the forwards. I like Kempe. I forget the guy that had all the goals for him this year.
Oh, Fiala, he's been
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah, and he did like second and third line. I know he was mostly third line.
Yeah.
Trevor Moore looked good.
Yes.
Shoot first type of guy. So, yeah, I got to pick somebody. I got to pick one of the heavyweights coming out of it. Again, like you said, if they play Dallas, if they play Edmonton, one of those heavyweights has to just roll through this first round. Unfortunately, the victim lines up to be the Kings, but it's still going to go 6 games minimum, or probably go 7. I don't know. Kopitar just has a way, and he's not only is he 50 years old, but he's about 7 feet tall. He's just a big body. He's tough. He can play both ways, and he's done it, and he's shown it. And to have that guy that's been there and done that, he's got the rings, and then you lead by example. So these young guys that are just want to go out and skate, 100 miles an hour on their first shifts, like, hey, settle it down. But
Hey,
we'll see.
I'll ask you guys. And I mentioned Copley, and he's been hurt the majority of the season. Talbot and Riddick
Yeah.
have really picked it up. And I know Talbot, I wouldn't say he's overachieved, but nevertheless, he is 36 years old.
Right.
He's on obviously the very back end of his career. We know these goalies can actually play a long time. In Riddick, they've been really, really good all year. They've stepped in. They're both veterans and stuff. But I don't see Dallas having a huge hiccup. But knowing Edmonton's going to play the Kings or Vegas, the defending champions, I can see Edmonton maybe having some issues. JT, I don't. I mean, you know about. We all know about Edmonton's playoff struggles, right?
They've
I mean,
been they've kind of been my
what if they
favorite team
drew?
to bet against, right?
Yeah, what if they
In
drew
the first
Vegas in the
round.
first round? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tough
I'm
one.
gonna think about taking Vegas. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I know we always look at the first round matchups and like, hey, where's the odds at? Kind of those things. And I've taken the other team against Edmonton the last couple of years because I'm just like, I like the odds
Yeah,
because everybody likes them, everybody's betting on them, and you can get good odds the other way. So I've taken our teams. If I'm Edmonton, I don't want any part of Vegas.
yeah,
I'm
that's
scared.
a
I
tough
want
draw.
the Kings. I want the Kings. So I really do. Obviously, it comes down to tomorrow night for
Mhm.
both those guys. The Kings have the Blackhawks at home, and the Vegas is against Anaheim. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure it's Anaheim. Yes.
Yeah,
So they're
a
against the
couple
Ducks at
easy
home.
matchups.
So
Yeah.
if Vegas wins, they clinch it. If they lose and the Kings win, then the Kings can jump them. But yeah, if I'm Edmonton, I'm pulling hard. I'm pulling hard there that we get the Kings. You hate to like want a team because then like you're like, are you setting yourself up to lose to them? But I just don't want Vegas. They've just got they've come on late. They've got obviously that championship
They've
pedigree.
had
I just don't
injuries.
want to
Yeah.
see, I don't want to see a team like that really struggled most of the year and then snuck in. Like that team scares me. Um, I'm with you, Toast. I don't want that. And I also like I we talked about Dallas at the beginning of the year. I still kind of think I'm on Dallas. They're not the
Hmm.
sexiest team, but gosh, they just get it done. They got a lot of different guys that can do it. Some of the
That's a
young guys are
playoff
playing
team right
well.
there.
Ottinger just like in the goal. I still like that team coming out of the West. I mean, to me, I like them, and then I'm probably leaning Colorado as my second team that I would favor coming out of the West, just because how well they played. Can the goaltending hold up for Colorado is going to be the question for me. But McKinnon's been just on an absolute freaking tear this whole year. So those would be my two favorites as I lean in the West. Aaron, kind of where are you at with some of these matchups?
And yeah, a lot of what the West is going to be is the first round is going to be very, very important. To your point with Vegas, look at Mark Stone. He's been out all year,
Hmm.
and then he's got the no contact jersey on, so they're pulling the old cap, get around the cap, and here's our our
Aaron, he was at a concert recently, like jumping around
yeah.
and like going crazy. Whose concert was that, Aaron? You know,
I don't
or
know. I saw the video, but I no,
yeah.
I'm not sure. But yeah, yeah. I saw that. That was pretty funny. But yeah, they the uh the was the Lightning last time they won the cup. There was all that controversy because Cooch was on the long term IR, and so his
Mhm.
money, his what 8-9 million, whatever he's making, came off the books. So it's the same thing. And I tell you what, Thomas Hurdle's heating up at the right time. He had an awesome game the other night.
Yeah.
I don't remember who they played. I just remember he gave a great interview at the end of the game. And so he seems like he's one of those guys you just want in the room. He was saying some funny things. He played well. Barbashev's been a snooze fest all year. He's, talking about banger leagues. He was getting his hits, but he's not getting his points. But he's the same thing he did in last year when they won the cup. He shows up in the playoffs. He did the same thing for St. Louis. So we know this guy. This guy's the modern day Claude Lemieux. He plays when the playoffs hit, and he's the best player on the ice when the playoffs hit. So yeah, I would not want to play them coming out of the West, though. I'll say this, and I know that the West isn't set again. I think I've probably said that 10 times now, but out of the West, um, I'm really, really. I think I'm not sure if the matchup's 100%. Is it Winnipeg in Colorado? And this could be wrong.
It
I
is.
I
That
think
now
it's
it's set.
guaranteed. That one set.
Yeah.
It is? Okay,
Hmm.
so I got the Jets beating them. I do. I've got so that last year, and I'm gonna say so I didn't do it in any kind of public format, didn't do it on a podcast, but just amongst friends, amongst buddies, a bunch of my fellow gambling degenerates. I called Boston getting punted out of the first round. I was the only one that did it. I got called a whole bunch of names, even by non-Boston fans. But this is my round one upset is Winnipeg. I just they shut teams down. They got three deep lines, so Colorado's my kind of my fall. So again, out of the West though, I still am on the Dallas train. I think they got it all. They got the very very deep defense and goalies win you cups. They got both.
Mhm.
So I like the Stars coming out of the West.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Aaron. So with Winnipeg, Colorado, that was one of the matchups I want to talk about as well. I do have Colorado winning that in 7. I mean, so it's a toss up,
It's
right?
going 7.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Winnipeg does have the advantage in goal. There's no doubt about that. JT, I know that you and I talked about Connor Hellebuck. Hell, we had a whole episode on Hellebuck. earlier in the season. Like
Absolutely.
how amazing he is. He's a top 3 goalie every single year. There's no doubt about it. And they do have the edge and defense core as well. Now,
Yeah.
Colorado does have the best player, right? They got the best player. That's not taking anything away from Winnipeg. They got really, really good players, but they got the best player. They probably have the best, I would say, first couple lines too, especially when they've been healthy and they have been as well. Um, they got, Cale Makar as well, but Alexander Georgiev has been very shaky. He's been benefited of a very good offense in front of him, and it gives him
Yeah.
a very good win-loss record. The save percentage has not actually been all that great. This Colorado's is a tough matchup for them. If they get past this one, they'll roll the next one, as in my opinion. But this is going to be the hardest one. And I mean, I can't wait to get some of these other matchups. Hey, JT, we're at 35 minutes. We're going past an hour again. Just heads up, all
I
right?
figured we were
Because
gonna.
we
Hey,
got
we're already
plenty
late
to
night.
talk about. We got
Everybody's
plenty to talk
late
about. We
night. We're
gotta
hanging
get through
out.
this.
Nobody's got to go to bed, right? We
Yeah,
got plenty of time.
yeah.
I'm not worried about it. No, you push. But Toast, are you kind of with me and Aaron? I know we were on from the beginning of the season. Do you still feel like Dallas is the team to beat in the West?
I love Dallas. Yes. So I still think Dallas, especially if they end up drawing the Kings, that's gonna go ahead and that's gonna be a first round win for Dallas. And honestly, I just think the East is more deep. Um, Winnipeg could actually knock off Colorado. I don't want to give my pick away for the National Vancouver yet, but I just will say that the West is a little bit more wide open for me. And Dallas has been steady Eddie all year. They're so deep, and now when you actually have Wyatt Johnston and Stankoven, and young guys like that actually able to fill out those first 3 lines. That second line actually carried them for a long period of time during the season when that whole Pavelski, Hentz, and Robertson, they were good. They just weren't like elite like they've actually been, and they actually stepped up with Sagan and also Duchesne being there as well. They're they're too deep. They're so good. And Wedgwood is a really really good backup. Really good backup. I mean, he has found his home in Dallas as a backup. If I'm him, I just say, hey, you know what? I'll pay me $3 million. I'll be your backup for the next 5 years. That's fine. No big deal at all. But Dallas is, I want to say by far and away the best team in the West, but they're definitely the best team in my opinion, top to bottom. They're built for a long playoff run.
And any other teams you guys want to talk about on the West before we jump over to talk
Mm-hmm.
about matchups on the East side? Give me what you guys got.
I want to talk about the Nashville Vancouver matchup. So I kind of broke this down, JT, Aaron, about uh, let's go ahead and just talk about it here. So best forward, the best forward goes to Vancouver. All right, so Elias Pettersson is probably the best forward in that matchup, and that's not taking anything away from Philip Forsberg, but he's the best player in that entire matchup, and JT Miller is really, really close as well. The best forward lines as well. I think the deepest lines is Vancouver. The best defensive group is probably Vancouver as well. And, that's saying a lot considering Nashville's got Roman Yossi. Best goalie? Okay. So Demko's coming back. He's actually back. But he had a pretty good, time off there. You never know how he's going to react in the playoffs. Saros is pretty steady all the way around. What gets it for me is playoff experience. And it's not only the playoff experience of the teams. If you go back and look in Vancouver, just take away COVID, right? They don't have any playoff experience. They have none. They have none. And now I will say, since they made the coaching change halfway through the season last year, they've been a different club, right? They've been really, really, really good. But Nashville, You go back and look at the last 10 years of playoff experience, they got a lot of it, and they've actually had a lot of success as well. And you actually bring a guy like Ryan O'Reilly in here this year. O'Reilly's won a cup. Um, Forsberg and Yossi. This is one of my biggest upsets. I have Nashville in 7. And a lot of people will be like, "You're crazy," but Vancouver just hasn't done it before, and Nashville actually has. And I think this is the worst matchup for Vancouver. If Vancouver would have been just dying to actually have like the Kings or Vegas or somebody like that, or even heck, even Edmonton. All right, but I think that Nashville gives Vancouver a lot of problems.
Yeah, Aaron, what are your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah. I would say Nashville. Yeah, you make great points with the playoff experience. I'm looking at the roster now uh, for the Canucks, and yeah, just not seeing hardly anything. However, I would. Oh, I mean, this little rush. I mean, you only have so many of those games in you. Whether it's regular season and playoffs is another season, and it's just another level. It's another. It. There's so much extra that goes into it. So I think that uh, I'm going the opposite. I don't have as as good of an argument, just other than I just think it's Vancouver. I think they've got Tocchet, they've got a system, they've got Quinn Hughes, but yeah, the biggest question and the only reason why I think again I think all these games are going 7. I don't care if it's East West.
Mm-hmm,
All these
mm-hmm.
first round games are all going 7 games. Everybody's going to be flying around out there, but yeah, the Demko is my only hesitation there. If I go Demko versus Saros, I think you got to tip your cap to Nashville, and then you got Yossi and you've got Quinn Hughes, and I think and Yossi, who I know we haven't. Maybe we'll talk about this later. Maybe we won't. But Yossi, I think with all he brings to the game and his time on ice and his 20 some odd 23 goals, I think this year, he's almost point for point with Quinn Hughes, but he's a better defender.
Mm-hmm.
He's a shutdown defenseman that can score 25 goals in a year, which is crazy. He's elite level. I know Quinn Hughes is. I know Cale Makar is, but Yossi's been around too. So those are the two things that make me nervous. But overall, I just think the forward depth on Vancouver, the buy-in for the team, they've got young legs. I think they can get through a veteran team with what they have, um, and their youth and their adrenaline's going to get them through the first round. Then they're going to get tossed out of the second round. Is kind of what I think for Vancouver. So I'm going opposite. I'm going Vancouver in that matchup.
Yeah, and I'll say, JT, before you chime in here, and Aaron, I agree with everything you said. And the only thing that worries me right now is, again, Demko being out a
Yeah.
while, right?
Yep.
And just not having that momentum actually going in. And then Nashville having that 18 game winning streak, what it was.
Yeah.
So you gotta think that how many teams in NHL history have actually had an 18 game winning streak where they haven't actually lost. I think what was it, 16-0-2 or something
Yeah.
like that or whatever. And also too having the pedigree of actually having some playoff wins and they not win the first round matchup. So if you look at this that and I kind of look at it simple, and again, you're right. On paper, Vancouver's better. They're better. They're better. They got much more forward depth. Geez, um, uh, they're such a good team, especially again since the halfway point of last season. But that's a crappy draw for Vancouver, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the playoffs, and you guys know how the NHL playoffs are. It's wide open once the playoffs start, man. It's grinded out. It's just every shift. I mean, everybody's working their asses off. So that's a tough one. I do believe that that'll go 7. It wouldn't
Yeah.
shock me at all either way, but it's going to be a deep playoff. It's not going to be an early exit for Nashville. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. All the points you made. I'm leaning Nashville, and because of the Demko. That's to me. That's the difference maker. How healthy is he? How sharp is he going to be? Um, I again, I agree with all your guys' points, but that's my lean right there on that. Anybody else? Any other matchups out west? We want to dive into.
I think we're
I
good.
think we pretty much
I'm
hit
ready to
most
tackle
everybody.
the East, man.
So let's jump up the east. So I'm gonna throw out a little something before I let you guys get into the deep dive on here, and I will just tell everybody my pick in right now that I'm just loving is Carolina Hurricanes. I love what they've done since the trade deadline. They've only lost 8 games since mid-February. 8. They have just been on a tear. They've looked like a team that has been really good on defense, offense, and then, obviously adding Gunsel was a huge deal at the deadline. Right now, this team for me, fourth in goals against, seventh in goals for, their second in power play percentage, and their first in penalty kill percentage. To me, that's what makes the difference for them in the playoffs. When they get on the specialties, they're gonna win the specialties. And so you get in the playoffs, they're gonna call it just a little bit tighter in some situations. I think that's where Carolina has the advantage, and that's where I'm leaning. I've just liked what they've done. I was, midway point, I was leaning Rangers, but I'm like Toast. I'm like, I see them getting upset. And then I feel like Carolina right now, they got that first round matchup with the Islanders, who Toast was like, he was their pick, and they ended up making a run and getting in the playoffs. But I think that's a tough 4 or 5 matchup, but I like Carolina in that one. And I to me, I feel like they got a run in them. So Toast, we'll start with you. Kind of, what do you think about just that overall matchup? And then we can kind of move on, go to Aaron, and see kind of who you guys, as we talk about his match, who you like. But I just was going to get that out of the way. Carolina right now is my team in the East, and I just love where they're at, and I just think this is I think they win this 4-2 against the Islanders, and move on here. What do you think, Toast, about this Islanders Hurricanes matchup?
Yeah, so the Carolina has the best player in Sebastian Aho. And, the Gensel edition is huge. I mean, he's really giving them life. I mean, and Sebastian Costa's been actually injured here and there, but he's actually there as well. I mean, they're very deep. We know how they actually play great defense as well. They got really good goaltending. The goaltending worries me with Carolina with Kachekov. You wonder a young goalie like that if he's kind of ready for this moment. And I would say even the best defensive core there, Carolina has. They have the best skaters, but Sorokin's a really good goaltender. The Islanders kicked it up a couple of notches here in the last 2 weeks of the season. JT, I want to say that 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, the Islanders were plus 1,000 to make the playoffs. They made it.
We were
they actually
talking
come
about
on.
it. It was the
Yeah.
bet that we were talking about. We're like, man, Islanders are plus 1,000. And we were just we were kind of leaning. We're like, should we? Should we do it? And then once we went to actually make the move, a ton of the stuff came off. Like I was, we talked about the Caps and the Red Wings were like at one point were plus 200, plus 190 to make the playoffs, and a few other ones. But that was the long shot. We said, man, what about the Islanders at plus 1,000? And we didn't make the move, but then that was the one I regret. We should have jumped on that because you're right. They turned it up down the stretch when they had to.
Yeah, and surprising enough, the playoff experience, really the edge has to go to the Islanders. If you and they had a deep run, right? And they were, I think it was not last year, but the year before. Is that right? Where they actually went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Um, so I just think that the Islanders of Carolina, Carolina is the better team, but the Islanders are almost a replica of Carolina to some degree. And I've said it all year that the Islanders, what excites me more is the fact that they're opening up offensively. and they actually aren't as tight defensively, which is stupid to say. It's just they're willing to play that more open game. And so this is a toss up for me. It should be Carolina. I got the Islanders in 7. And I just have to go to the Islanders. The fact that I've actually pumped them up all year long. And if the Islanders actually win his first matchup, man, then just let's throw it out the window, all the predictions, and then you have momentum, right? Then who knows, right? So this is going to be a really, really good first matchup or first round
I
matchup, I think.
absolutely love the dedication from Toast
Yeah.
sticking with his
It's
boys.
He,
Yeah,
stupid.
he's
I
being
love it.
Makes
loyal.
no.
He's
It's
like,
all
nope,
It
I'm
probably
loyalty.
doesn't
sticking,
make any
Yeah.
sense, but man, it's a gut
sticking
feeling.
with them. I
It's a
love
gut.
it.
But think about it. The Islanders loved traditionally in years past. They'll play tight between the blue lines. Real, really good goaltending. Actually, want to go ahead and defense you to death. I think they have that in them still, but yet they've actually improved offensively as well. And they've loosened up actually defensively just to go ahead and play that more fast game. So when the playoffs come, just like I was saying 2 months ago with the Islanders, JT, they can play different styles of games. And so you don't know what you're going to get for the Islanders in the playoffs. They could play the slowdown game if they want to. They can actually run with the other teams that they actually want to as well, and actually score in bunches because I think they're like 4th or 5th this year in shots on goal in the entire NHL. That's not the Islanders. We actually know, and also they give up a crap ton of shots as well, so they're opening it up a little bit. I think they're a wild card. I do. I think they're a wild card. It would shock me at all if they beat Carolina. But Carolina probably wins the series, but I have Islanders in 7.
Wow. That is a bold pick. I mean, that's straight up picking with your heart and not your mind. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
like
It's
it. I
stupid, isn't it?
like it. I love it. I love it. It's yeah. I'm gonna go completely opposite. I'm gonna go 180 degrees. I'm gonna say the Hurricanes are gonna roll them with Freddie Anderson back, the blood clotting thing. Since coming back from the clots, he's 9-1 with about a 9.5 or 950 save percentage. So he's stopping all the pucks. Had some extended time off. He's rested. He'll be the for sure game 1 starter. So I'm not worried about him. Some of the forwards, like we mentioned, Svenchenkov, he's never been the
Mhm.
same player since Ovi KO'd him a few years ago in the playoffs. But I shouldn't say it, but I like Natchez. That's the guy that to me he looks, and I've said this before. He looks like Connor Bedard without the hand, or not Connor Bedard. I'm sorry, Connor McDavid. Even bigger name drop there, but he skates so fast. He's so fast. He anyway. So I think this is once Seth Jarvis has come on. Just looking at Kuznetsov went over there. I don't know if he's we'll see what we get out of him if he wants to show up. But Gadsel is your main pick up there. So their defense is just so solid top to bottom. Their line 3 defense is somebody else's line 1 defense. So it's just
Mhm.
too
Mhm.
much. They were embarrassed by Florida. Florida came out of nowhere, swept them. And again, we go back to that famous quote. Well, we weren't swept. I mean, they were all overtime losses, whatever. But um, yeah, I just see that. So that first round, I'm definitely tipping the cap. I'm saying probably 5 or 6 games. Carolina's gonna toss your boys. Hate to say. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Now you said wild card. Yeah, you're right. Islanders can play. They got their score. They got Bo Horvat. Tied him up forever. They are a different look, but the thing that they've got, the secret weapon is Patty Waugh. You
Mhm.
want to go into
Yeah.
that locker room and have that guy screaming 6 inches from your face about how you gave up you just dumped it in, or you passed it down the middle instead of using the
It's gonna be
boards.
full metal jacket shit. All right.
Yeah, he will. He will. It is.
Mhm.
It will be.
Yeah.
You don't want to go back in that room. You don't want to have a little
Yeah.
talking to. That guy's a lunatic, and he's going to throw sticks on the ice, and he's going to punch the ref, and he's going to do all kinds of crazy stuff that we know and love of him. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's what happens. Now he's not going to fight Rod Brendamore, Rod the Bod, Rod would kill him.
No, that'd be
But
stupid.
yeah,
Yeah, he would.
but that could be your missing link. That could be what propels you. But we'll see. The Kings are too tough. They're too tough. So I'm with
Yeah,
you,
they're
JT.
good.
I think they're gonna do well. They're first round. I think this is one of the locks I've got in the first round. I'll go so far as to say that is Carolina coming out.
The next matchup, and this one I think is ultra interesting to see what you guys think is going to happen here. We've got number 3 seed Boston Bruins versus number 6 seed Toronto Maple Leafs. The Bruins coming off, like you said, the historic win season, losing in the first round. Now they're the 3 seed, a little bit of a different team. Pressure maybe is not as great as it was last year. And now you have the Leafs, who we've been talking about, I feel like forever. They've got a ton of talent, but can never get it done in the
Mhm.
playoffs. This to me is a super, super interesting matchup. Toast, give me your thoughts on this one. Do the Leafs upset Boston 2 years in a row and move on to the next round, or does Boston put it back together, put the Leafs out of their misery early, as they have been the last couple years, and do Boston kind of get right in the playoffs and move on?
I like Boston. So Boston, in my mind, they overachieved this year. Coming out of the historic regular season, the most points in regular season history last year, and actually getting beat in the first round. And then coming back this year, and you end up having one of their all-time greats, with Patrice Bergeron actually retire, and you end up coming out with Pavel Zacha, who comes in and replaces him, and then Jake DeBrusk actually stepping up as well. Even Charlie Coyle's actually not been too bad at all either. Um, Boston's just gritty. They got great goaltending, great goaltending. So with Olmark and really Swayman's the guy, and Olmark, the Vezina winner from last year, is really their. There's a 1-1A, right? So Toronto, they're the sexy pick. They're kind of like your Edmonton. But I like Boston. I like Boston here. Marchand is an asshole. But when he's your asshole, I'd love to have him on my team, right? We've said that a million times. Um, as great as Matthews is, and Marner and Tavares, their goaltending actually has got better this year. I just don't see it. That's a really bad draw for them in the first round. Man, have I went nothing but upsets with all of my picks here? I mean, but that's the beauty of the NHL playoffs. It really, really is. I I like Boston. McAvoy's been amazing this year. He really, really has. Pasternak, I mean, if you look at Pasternak's 47 goals, 63 assists, you have 110 points on the season. Most times or not, that's going to be an MVP talk. He's not even an MVP talk because of the big three, right? Of McKinnon, Kucherov, McDavid. He's right there as well. Marchand actually gets in all the dirty spots. He will agitate a team. I do think this will actually go pretty deep, but it's a crap draw for Toronto, which I will give them. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Most times or not, they get a crap draw. They always have a hard team in the first round, no doubt about it at all. And I just don't see them doing it. I don't. So I like Boston.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
Aaron, where are you sitting on this matchup?
100%. Everything you just said. I'm going Boston too. Much the same reasons. I'm going to get a little bit more direct. I think Samsonov sucks. I think
Mm-hmm.
that the Toronto doesn't have crap for a goalie, and again, I'm probably going to say it on every matchup. So just get ready for the repetitiveness. But again, it comes down to goalie and defense, and I like the core defense. I'd say that they're similar. Boston's got a little bit more size, but then it comes down to the goal, and you're talking about major league player versus a double A player is in in terms of baseball. But it yeah, I mean the goalie's not even the same. You got the so much pressure in Toronto. So much it's they 1967's the last time they won a cup.
Yeah.
Everybody in that town watches the game. They shut down the streets. I mean, those of the Cub fans, we can relate to this, right? What were we
Hmm.
doing in 2006? What did we do in 2003? What did we do in 98? 84.
Yes.
You could feel the pressure. You could feel it. That's what these guys got every time they start up a playoff series. So does that make or break? No, but I think it can be a difference, especially if it goes 7 games. I got to come back and yeah. So I totally agree with you. I like Boston's depth better. I like the what happened to them last year made them mad. They were embarrassed. They were a joke. They're gonna come back and they're gonna
And
punch
Aaron,
punch Toronto right in the mouth.
that's the big part for me is what happened last year.
Yeah,
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 that's so bad for Toronto on a draw. The
yeah.
draw the
It
Boston
is.
Bruins had their last year, that's the worst draw possible, in my opinion.
Yeah. And how many? And I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but of the last, let's say you even go back 10 years. Of the last 10 years, how many Cup winners rolled through Toronto in the first round? So you're right. I mean, all
Yeah.
those Tampa teams, they were beating up on the Leafs, or the Leafs would take them 6 games, 7 games, and then whatever it was. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's an original six. It's already a much anticipated rivalry with those two. They hate each other. They go back a million years, and that's who you draw. Congratulations on the whatever the. You could probably say the same thing for Boston. Getting the third place. Like, hey, I
Hmm.
wouldn't want to play the Leafs, but kind of I would, because their goalie sucks. So yeah, Boston won't have a problem. Maybe it'll go 6 7 games, but
Yeah, like these all
Boston will
will.
do it.
And
Yeah.
and Aaron, I'll tell you, I'm looking at the stats right now since 2006. Toronto missed the playoffs from '06 to 2012. In 13, they lost in the first round, and they missed the playoffs 14, 15, 16. And that's when Matthews came in 16, I believe.
Ah,
And then first round in 17, first round in 18 loss, first round loss in 19, 20 first round, 21 first round, 22nd first round. Last year's conference semi, so they won one round. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the seventh. This is the 8th year with Matthews. That's too many. That's too many years with Matthews. And you got a great player in Marner. You actually signed Tavares actually away from the Islanders. And then you have a Nylander as well. That's too many great players to just not get it done. Nobody will be a believer until they actually really go deep. And once they go deep, then watch out. Once they go deep one
Yep, they just
time,
gotta break
watch
the
out.
ice. It's like they
Yes.
just gotta get over that
Yeah.
hump, and you feel like this team, if they get that pressure off their back to get over the hump, they're gonna be really good, but
yeah.
they, for me, feel like the Edmonton of the East. It's like
Yep.
they're
Yeah.
the sexy team, they score points, they get all the big names, and you're like, "Yeah, this team is great, we're piling up goals," and then you get the playoffs, you're like it's almost like a football team that's scoring like 35 a game in the regular season, and then you get the playoffs and you gotta win a 17-14 game or
Yes.
14-10
Yes.
game, and they just can't do it. They're like, "Oh, the offense isn't flowing. We just don't have enough to get over the hump." And that's what the Maple Leafs feel like to me. A
Yeah.
team that's high flying in the regular season. You love to watch them. They're exciting, and then they get the playoffs, and you're like, "Oh, we just don't have enough defense. We just don't have enough goaltending, and we're gonna get in these close games. And when we get in that close game, their defense is out gonna outplay our offense when they have a really good defense, and we're just not gonna be able to get over the hump. And that's where I feel like Toronto is. I'm all in on Boston in this series. I just think the goaltending, like you said, they've got two really good goaltenders against a team that has
No
two
goaltenders.
not good goaltenders. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Boston's guys make enough plays, and again, the loss last year pushes it over the top for me. I like Toronto as a team. I think they've gotten better, but again, until they get over that hump, I can't put my money on them until I see something else happen. And this is just a rough matchup for them in my
Hey,
eyes.
JT, we should check on DraftKings and see specifically what the odds are on Boston to actually win that first series. I would imagine it's plus money. It only may be plus 110, but let's say for some reason
The
it's like
crazy thing is they're the
plus
3
200,
seed
like,
and Toronto's the 6, so they're the favorite technically by seeding. But interesting to see,
yeah.
where the crowd's at on that because I always feel like the Maple Leafs are a little
I
bit.
think
They
the
get that
majority of the betting
Cowboys
is coming in
effect.
on Toronto, is my guess.
So
Yeah.
as I say, they always get that Cowboys effect where it's like it doesn't
Yes.
matter.
Yes.
Everybody's betting on the Cowboys, so you usually can get a better line the other way. That's where I'm thinking this one. If you're going to get a team where you're going to take the higher seed and they might be even money or like plus money, it feels like Boston could be that team because so much of the money could be coming in on Toronto. So I'll look that one up. You guys, as I'm looking that up, jump into the other two matchups real quick as we've got um, Capitals going against the Rangers. I think we all kind of know where we feel on that one. And then we've got Florida and Tampa. Right, I'm pretty sure that's the 2-7 matchup. Is that correct? And so the Battle of Florida there, that one to me is a little bit more intriguing. Aaron, just pick or choose which one of those matchups you want to talk about first while I look up the odds on this. See if I can find the Bruins Toronto odds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump right. I'm going to go with the hard one. The hard one to pick is Tampa, Florida. Like you said, the Battle
Yeah.
of Florida. That is, I think they're two very well matched teams. They've played in the regular season. Again, I kind of throw out the regular season to some degree. I mean, you can't completely
Hmm.
ignore it, what's happened. It's important to see how lines matched up, who had the last change, who was hurt at the time they played. So that does factor in. But these two teams have had some real slugfest, literally, this year and in years past. And yes, they're in close proximity, and they're a bus ride away. So I get it. And I don't think the fans are too rabid about it. But the teams are there. They're close. They always play each other tight. But it's then you look at, so Florida shocked the world last year. Um, then Reinhart comes and he dumps his 57 goals in the net this year, and you still got Kachuk and you got Bob in net, you got Vasilevsky. Without question, it's going 7 games, and I'm gonna pull a
Yes.
toast here. I'm gonna pick with my heart. Um, just because I want to see it, because I think they're just a bunch of nasty guys. I just want to see Florida do it again. I want to so I'm going Florida, but it is an absolute coin flip. I mean, I could just as easily go with Tampa Bay, and maybe in 15 minutes I will go Tampa Bay. But right now, in the moment, I'm going Florida. Just I come back to the what Barkov has done with his passing is just. Oh, it'll be different in the playoffs. You're going to have two guys on you. You're going to not have the room that you had in the regular season. I get all that, but it's just he's in his prime. I think he's the front runner, the defensive forward for the
Yeah, for the
Selkies. So he's
Selkie.
a
Yeah.
two-way player. He and that's what you need. Again, every matchup we're going to say it. So I'll go ahead and say it again. Is the defense, and I think they're um, not so much the defenders, not so much the actual D-men. I think Tampa's got a little bit of an edge there, but I would say the way that the forwards play defense for Florida is gonna edge it. But man, it's gonna be close. It's arguably probably as just a hockey fan in general, the series I'm most excited to watch because I think the games are gonna be so close and so tight. And we watch somebody's going to sweep somebody as soon as that's likely what'll happen. But I think this one will be fun. This one will be a good one to watch. But I'm going Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. And Aaron, I'll echo everything you said. This is the tightest matchup, the closest one on paper out of anyone in the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
Is this matchup right here. And I really like the winner of this matchup to go and actually win the next playoff, actually win the next round. Um, it was so I kind of look at these matchups and I look at who's got the best player, who's got the best lines, forward lines, who's got the best defensive group, best goalie, and then playoff experience. It's down the middle. It's down the middle. You got to give the edge to Tampa Bay with Kucherov. He's the best player on the ice, right? But
Yeah.
if you look at Florida, man, I mean, with Barkov, with Kachuk, look at Reinhardt's actually done as well. But then you actually look at over at Tampa Bay with Point and with Stamkos, and Stamkos has started to come on, and he was very,
Yeah.
I would say, quiet for Stamkos in the first half of the season, and even the first 2/3 of the season, he actually started to come on as well. So it's literally a toss up. That defenseman group as well, I got to give the slight edge to Tampa Bay, but I mean, that's not taking anything away from Florida as well. And here's the deal: best goalie, I gave it to Florida slightly. Bobrovsky's actually been so unbelievably good, and Vasilevsky, he's always expected to be like Superman, right? And he wasn't quite as great this year, but he's still a top 5 goal in the NHL, right?
Yeah.
And then the playoff experience, Florida with their deep run last year, Tampa Bay with their actually deep besides the Hawks, that's the only other dynasty run. And you could actually argue maybe the Kings, right? But so this is going to be, and they're all in the same state. It's a battle of Florida.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? But if either team that gets past and actually wins this series, I like them actually winning the next series. I do. I like them a lot. So this is going to be the best matchup in the first round in the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
I know we all think that the Rangers are a little vulnerable. Do you think they still get by the Caps fairly easy? I mean, I can see them getting upset. I'm just not sure the Cap. I mean, the Caps made the playoffs, which is a great run. I'm just not sure they got enough to push them another round. What do you guys think on this Ranger Cap series? Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go Rangers. Again, now I'm back to picking with my head. I think on paper they have a built to win now type of roster. I think they're very deep defensively. Goaltending is there with Shesterkin and Quick for that matter. When Shesterkin went down, or he had his kind of little episode with his, he had the bit of the yips, and then
He did.
Quick comes in and he just shuts him down. So I think the Rangers are definitely built to win now. I just again, with Washington, I don't know how they did what they did, and that's what scares me about them. Because what am I not seeing, or what is the entire league, or other than Washington's fan base? What do we not know about yet? That this team's is it? Oh, they tell a lot of stories about the KHL and the Russian gas. I don't know if you guys have heard those, but the KHL, there's no rules. It's just the Keystone Cops over there, and it's crazy, it's insane, and the Russian mob runs it and all this stuff. I mean, there's a million stories online about it, but are they I don't know. I don't know. Whatever Spencer Carberry's doing, that's what makes me nervous about saying that, because I'm almost, but I am gonna go. Like I said, I'm gonna pick with my head here. I'm gonna go Rangers because I like the roster and they're built to win now, and I think they're tough. I think they'll. Um, Tampa Bay and Florida could wind up killing each other out of there. So I don't know how much is going to be left out of whoever wins. So, you never know. But they're going to beat the tar out of each other. So I think if the Rangers can get by in less than, if they do just overwhelm them and kind of load up and try to get through it in 5 games, that might sit better. I don't like having I'm kind of contradicting myself. I don't like having the long lulls, but I think when you're talking about somebody coming out of the second round like that they just knock each other senseless, then you might want the extra days off. But I'm gonna go Rangers here. Gosh, but I really really want the Capitals to do it. I'll be pulling. I've got a couple. I don't have it on now, but I got my Capitals gear. I'll be wearing it. I'll be rooting for them louder than anybody. But again, if I'm putting my hard earned money on the line, which I will be, I'm going to go Rangers.
And Aaron, I'll tell you, and JT as well. This is a game we should actually get together for, and really see the Capitals versus Rangers, and what's actually because I'm actually with Aaron, Rangers in 5. But here's what I'll say: but if the Capitals can actually win that game 1, and again they've been in playoff mode here for a while, right? And I will say too, like cocaine is a hell of a drug. Okay, so momentum is a hell of a drug. They've got momentum. Um, on paper, this is not close. All right, on paper, this is not close. The Rangers actually have the best players. They got the best forwards. They got the best defensive group. They got the best goalie. And Washington playoff experience, besides their 2018 Cup run, and where they won it, the Rangers have not been bad in the playoffs either. This should be the Rangers in 5 or 6. It shouldn't be close. I'll be interested to see what happens early in this series. If Washington can win that first game, then it's all on. And I'm like, everybody's like, well, Toast, that's easy, right? Like every time underdog actually wins the first game, then it's actually on. But with Washington, the fact they've been playing meaningful games and playoff hockey for a while now, and Ovechkin's like been a man possessed for the last 30 games. Let's just watch game 1. Game 1, then we'll reevaluate after that.
Toast, I agree with you on that one because I'm in the same boat with you guys. I think it's 4-1 Rangers.
Yep.
But if Caps win game 1, do the Rangers start thinking about it? Does it
Yeah,
get in their head a little bit where they're like, "Shit, we've heard all year that this team is terrible. How the hell did they beat us game 1?"
Minus 37. Look at them.
yeah.
That's to me that game 1 maybe the most important game 1 of any game in the series because if the Rangers come out and win like 4-0, 4-1 and
done, man.
dominate,
It's done.
smack it, it's done, dude.
Yeah.
But if the Caps can somehow win that, then that seed of doubt gets in your head. You're like, this team shouldn't be good. How did they play with us? And then that's when you start doubting yourself. So I'm the same. I'm the same with you guys. I think it's a 4-1 winner pretty easily, but that first game is going to be highly interesting. So I've got a couple bets pulled up, but before we jump into the bets, for anybody that was waiting for us to talk about fancy hockey awards MVPs, we're going to push that to another show.
Yes.
We're going to push that one off to another show. We're about hour 17 in here. We got about 10 more minutes or so. We'll finish it up here. So I'm going to have Aaron, you give me your East winner, and Tosh, you give me your East winner, and then matchup championship, who you think wins. And then we're going to do a couple minutes where I'm going to talk about some of these series prices. And let's see, because we say who we like. Now let's look at the books and see where we're putting our money after those. So Toast, I'm going to start off with you. Give me your East winner. We just talked about the West, so give me your guy in the East, and then your matchup, and then who you think ends up winning it.
So I just got to look at like recent, I guess, momentum in the East, and I'll take Carolina. So everybody's like, "Well, Toast, you took the Islanders. Like how can you take Carolina?" Carolina has the easiest road. They do. All right. So I'm picking the Islanders with my heart because I've actually been doing that all season long. But that should not be a hard matchup on paper for Carolina. And I think that Washington Rangers matchup is going to be more difficult for the Rangers than it will be for Carolina versus Islanders in the end. And again, the only reason I'm picking the Islanders is the fact I've been with them all year. So just doing out of principle, right? So Tampa Bay and Florida is going to beat the shit out of each other. Boston, Toronto. As much as we actually think Toronto that's going to be deep. That's going to be a deep series, right? I like Carolina out of the East. They're just they can win with offense, defense, goaltending, all of that. They have pretty much everything. So I like Carolina.
And who do you got Carolina taking on in the Stanley Cup Finals, and who do you got winning?
So got to stick with Dallas because Dallas has actually been there all year for us, JT. We've been talking about them. They are the deepest team. They're the deepest team in the West. Rolling out 3 lines like they can actually do. Again, with Ottinger, Wedgwood. I love Dallas, so it's gonna be Dallas, Carolina. I mean, hell of a matchup right there.
I love it, Aaron. Where are you at?
It's going to be so lame, but it's the same. I got Carolina out of the East. I got Dallas out of the West. So yeah. I mean, again, all the points we've already made. If I were picking with my heart, I'd say the Oilers. I want McDavid to win as many cups as he's got Hart trophies. Might already be too late. That ship may have already sailed. But I just got to go with what I see, and I see Dallas. It's funny, it's ironic. I made this exact prediction last year. I was way off. Dallas got rolled. Vegas just was too much, and they were too strong. It was too much, um, and then Carolina, they ran into the Florida train. So I just kind of moved that forward. I think both teams have improved from last year. Both teams had an unexpected exit, I'll say, last year. That means something. I remember as a kid, I read Wayne Gretzky's book, and when the Edmonton went on their 4 cups in 5 years or whatever the real old school dynasty was in the
Mm-hmm.
mid 80s. It was before they went on that run. They had lost to the Islanders, and he said he walked by the locker room and nobody was celebrating, nobody was popping champagne, nobody was drinking beer. Everybody was just icing down, even though the Islanders just won a cup. But the Edmonton, it made him see what it that took, and then they went on their tear. So these guys that go deep in the playoffs, and I've seen the same behavior from Detroit when they had their kind of dynasties. Same thing from the Hawks. They lose in a conference final, they lose in the second round, whatever it is, but you got to get there first. And so I think Carolina and Dallas are set up to do that. They're still young enough. They didn't have the short off season like Vegas did, like Florida did. They don't have the round 1 matchup, so I'm going right there with you. So we're either going to live, we're going to live comfortably, or we're both going to be in the soup line. So I'm there with you on that call.
Hey,
Definitely.
Aaron and JT, before you go, I want to mention one
Yep.
thing. Here's where I don't believe in Edmonton. Now, tonight, could they have actually benefited from winning or losing? No, they could not. They're locked in. They're locked into their spot. Makes no difference at all. They're either facing the Kings or Vegas. Makes no difference. They can't. They go back. They go into Arizona. McDavid and Draisaitl, and I understand they're actually without Evander Kane. They play every shift. They get pumped 5-2. I just can't. I can't get behind that. I'm sorry. I can't do it. They're Toronto.
Arizona is our kryptonite.
Yeah.
We
And it's not
I
because I
don't
lost
think
a
we
bet
lost
tonight.
one. I mean, we have not won one game where we bet
No.
against Arizona. I
Oh.
swear.
Yeah.
If we bet against Arizona, Arizona wins. It is like money in the
Yeah.
bank.
And
Fade us every time we take Arizona. It's wild to me, but Toast, I agree with you. I saw the same thing. It's just like
I
they didn't
just,
have that urgency, and you're just like, oh, really? I know you guys don't have
it
to
doesn't
win, but like
matter. It doesn't
this
matter.
team's
It's
bad.
the
You can't
last
play
game of
a
the
little
season.
bit better. Ugh.
Yeah. McDavid was out for 3 games and he actually comes back. And he actually scored a goal. He got an assist. That's fine. Tonight he didn't score at all. And you're actually at Arizona. And that's not the way you actually want to actually play going into your last game of the regular season versus Colorado. You want to have momentum. You actually want to go ahead and pump those guys you're supposed to, and you didn't tonight, and you got absolutely embarrassed. I just, I that's just that's not a team that's going to win the cup. Sorry, they're just not going to do it. And everybody's like toast. Like, why would you actually say it? It's one game. It did not matter. It does not matter. Well, games that don't matter with teams that are actually great, they beat them anyway. They do. And they don't get beat 5-2, actually, versus Arizona of all teams. That's an absolute disaster. So I don't see it. I don't see it. They're not going to do it.
I think with this magical season, I don't care who hoists the cup, but the best news for us, for this podcast right here and our bets, thank God they're getting out of that team out of the desert. Get out of here. Go to Salt Lake.
Spot.
No joke.
We get a big reset button. We can make our safe end of season bets. We're back. So get out of here. Good riddance.
Yeah, that was absolutely the team that was our kryptonite all year.
I lost them
I
all.
hate. I don't think seriously. I don't know. They crushed every parlay, anything I had all year. They just were the team that every time I was like, oh no, okay, I lost the last one. This one I'm gonna win.
Yeah.
Like I got to get one of these against Phoenix. No, they just got me all year. I swear, I think they only won on the games we bet against them. I think that was their only wins all year. It was brutal.
JT, real quick before we end up wrapping up, it's past midnight here. I don't think we've ever went this deep, but we started late. And here's the deal: we may not have this podcast all off season. We're gonna do our best, but nevertheless, we've went a little bit late these last couple because we know, like, hey, we got football coming up. We got some other podcasts actually coming up. So we and some other seasons actually, starting up in an NHL. Nevertheless, do we want to go ahead and just, without actually going into detail, just mentioning our award winners? Just mention them. We can throw them out there because I got mine ready.
I said we can either do that or we can do those next week. We can jump in next week, early part of the playoffs, and we can throw those. I'm open either way. What you guys want to do? Before we do that, I will say I'm going to be as lame as can be. And make it a 3 for 3. I have Carolina versus Dallas, with Dallas beating Carolina in it. So we obviously jinxed the shit out of both of these teams because we all like the same thing. So that's obviously got to be a loser. There's no way we can all like the same teams. A quick rundown, Toast, before we do that. Hurricanes minus 340 to win the first round. Islanders plus 280. If you end up thinking it's going to go deep, you can get Islanders in a 7 game. If you go correct score in the correct series total, if you think the Islanders can win in 7, I just had it up here. It was like plus 850. So, so if you want to try to take the series there, you can do that. Let me look at a couple other series winners real quick. Canucks are minus 150. The Predators are plus 130. So if you like the Preds there, nice little money there. Avalanche minus 135. Jets are plus 115. So Aaron, there you got your plus money on them. Bruins minus 125. Maple Leafs plus 105. So that one's a pretty tight there.
Pick 'em.
Panthers minus 170. Tampa Bay plus 145.
Wow.
And shocker, Rangers minus 450. Capitals plus 340 in that series.
Yeah. I wonder. Yeah, plus 340. Yeah, the Rangers are going to win that series. Let's just say.
And like I said, you're almost better off if you think that there's going to be like 5-1. You're better off taking the series total games, like the 5 games are winning
JT,
4-1. Those are your better odds.
You mentioned the Tampa Bay, Florida. Did you say Florida was minus 170 and Tampa Bay was plus 135?
I'm pulling up real quick. Yes, minus 170 for the Panthers, plus 145 for Tampa.
That's the play. That's the play. Again, you got to have a lot of bankroll, right? Because these are all pretty much like within minus 130 to plus 120, right? But that's a larger spread the majority of us actually thought that would actually be. So, um, uh, Tampa Bay could easily win that series. I mean, it's a pick 'em to me. It should be actually -110, -110, and now a lot of people's going to say, well, geez, Tampa Bay is not the same defensive team, and that's true. That's true. They're not. Um, they've they've really had a bunch of bad losses this year, but they've got that pedigree in the playoffs. And I know Florida is hungry. They really had that slower start, actually coming out of the first I'd say 30 games of the season, where Kachuk like did nothing, and then he went ballistic, right, with that long run. But that's the best odds for me out of all the ones you actually read, was a plus 135 or 145. What have you actually said for Florida? I'm sorry, for Tampa Bay. That's good. That's very, very good.
I will tell you guys, when I just looked up here, this is the most interesting one to me. Right now, the Avs are -135 to win the series. Jets are plus 115. But if you go to correct games, if you actually go 4-3, the Jets have a better are favored. If it goes 4-3, Jets are plus 475. If Avalanche win 4-3 in 7 games, it's plus 500. So I think
Yeah,
that's very interesting that the Avs are actually the favorite to win the series. But if it gets to 7, the Jets are favored. They have lower odds than if it gets to 7. So again, you're looking there going, hey, if it gets to 7, we're going with the goaltending. It's a
that's
it's a
interesting.
it's a plus 475 instead of plus 500, which you rarely see that at all. So that to me is very, very interesting. If you think that's going the distance and you think Winnipeg is going to win it in 7, you can get them at plus 475 instead of plus 115. Rangers instead of minus 450. If you think they're going to win 4-1, you can get them at plus 250 to win 4-1 and plus 400 if you get them to win 4-0 in that series. So those are some interesting ones too to kind of think about. Hurricanes, me and Toast had them at 4-2. That's plus 350 for the
Hmm.
Canes to win 4-2 in that series. So those are always things to think about. You know, if you really feel strongly about a series going one way or the other, and you think it's going to go X amount of games, you know, you get a little longer odds there, you get a little bit of chance there. So I like that. So Toast, we're an hour and a half in. I hate to do it, but we're going to push the awards to next week. We'll do a show next week. We're talking a little
That's
bit
good.
about the start of the playoffs, and we're going to do our fantasy awards at that point and kind of talk about some of the surprises. We were wanting to get that in tonight, but man, we got all fired up about the playoffs, which is not a shocker. So we got deep into it. So to close things out here, you can look up Toast Clark, Bryan here at Toast Clark on the Twitter, Titch4141 to see Aaron on there. We will be posting our Toast takes, our JT parlay play of the day. We'll be throwing all that stuff on Twitter, on the X throughout the playoffs. So make sure to jump on there, follow us on there, hit the notifications, and then you can, when we put that stuff out, you'll be able to see it. If you can, please get in, like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can jump onto our X Twitter page. It's the JT Brew Stew, at JT Brew Stew is our actual Twitter page for the show. So you can jump on there and follow us on there. And then we always are sending out our toast takes and our JT parlay bets on that one. So we don't put as much stuff on as my JT Orange, because I throw out a ton of football stuff on there too. So if you're looking for more just the hockey bets, the JT Brew Stew is the one to kind of get on there and follow that one. Guys, final last words, final face off. Great show tonight. Sorry we ran so late, everybody. I had a bunch of other shows I was on, so we kind of got a late start tonight. But Toast, start us final face off for you until next week.
I think the NHL playoffs will be like they always are. You'll have great goalie play. It'll be a little bit unpredictable. This first round it will be a little wild, and then after that, I expect it to settle down a little bit. So, I mean, in my opinion, out of all the big four sports, there's nothing like the NHL playoffs. I think that has the most parity. You can nothing for an 8 seed to go ahead and just make a little bit of a run, which is awesome. So you have that a little bit in baseball, not so much in football, not so much in actually basketball, but you have that a little bit in baseball as well because it comes down to pitchers in baseball. It comes down to goalies in the playoffs and tough defense as well, and just grinding them out. So that's what makes it great. So I'm looking forward to it.
How about you, Aaron? Final face off for you.
Yeah, final face off. Just, we got two more. Well, they kick off now. So get your sleep. These games go into double overtime, triple overtime, quad overtime.
Mhm.
I hope you got your rest up to this point because you don't want to miss any of this. I don't care if your team's in, out. And if your team's out, then pick a new one and follow them because anybody can win these games. So go Caps.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you guys. Nothing's like playoff hockey. There's just nothing like it. I remember in college getting on watching a Penguins Flyers game, and it just kept going overtime. And at that point I was hooked. I was like,
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't have
invested.
anything in this game, but like this thing, I gotta stay till the end. I gotta watch the end. My friends were calling me like, "Hey, you ready to go out?" I'm like, "Dude, I gotta see the end of this game." Like it's that intense. Every shot, every flick of the wrist, every skate, you just never know when it's gonna bounce off somebody, and you're gonna see something crazy happen. So playoff hockey is the best. So thanks, guys, for joining us. Thanks for everybody jumping on Twitter, YouTube, all the places to watch us. We'll have the show uploaded on Spotify and Apple Podcasts in the morning. So go ahead. And if you didn't get a chance to join us or you joined us late and you want to hear the whole show, everything we talked about, feel free to jump on, download that. And listen, fellas, thanks for joining me. It's been a fun night. And man, playoffs are here, boys. It's going to get exciting for the next couple months. So thanks again, everybody. You've been listening to Stu with JT Brew. We'll check you next time.